Hi, I'm Val, 34 years old. I lost my mom when I was just 5, and my dad raised me on his own for the next 7 years. When I was around 11, he told me he had started seeing someone. As a kid, I didn't think much of it, but when I turned 12, he introduced me to his girlfriend and shared that they were planning to get married soon. The first thing I thought was, she looks really young. Her name was Jody, and I later learned she was only 10 years older than me. At first, I was a bit uncomfortable with the small age gap, but eventually, I didn't let it bother me. Jody and I never really clicked. She was pushy and tried to step into the role of my mother. I tried talking to Dad about it, but he always sided with her. It frustrated me, and once I turned 18, I moved out. Even after moving out, I kept in touch with my dad. We'd have lunch together every other weekend. Dad tried, at first, to get me and Jody to bond more, but when he saw I wasn't interested, he backed off. Still, he frequently mentioned how much he loved her, hoping that over time, I'd come around. By that point, my life was going pretty well. I landed a job at a respected company right after college. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable and had started saving early. A couple of years later, things were really looking up. Then, when I was 28, my dad was in a freak accident and passed away. His death hit me hard. He was the only family I had left, and I was devastated. I spent nights crying myself to sleep, barely able to get through the days. I was lucky to take a week off work to mourn. Even though I didn't have the best relationship with Jody, I knew she loved my dad, so I made sure to check on her. When I first visited her after Dad's passing, she seemed, well, normal. I didn't expect her to be in mourning clothes, but I thought she might look a little more affected. I was a mess, puffy eyes, red nose, blotchy skin from crying. Jody, though, looked perfectly fine. I know it sounds harsh, but I kind of hoped she'd show the same level of grief that I was feeling for the man who meant the world to me. But then, she started crying while we talked about my dad. That softened me, and my feelings began to shift. After that, I started visiting Jody more often. We would sit together, drink tea, and share our emotions. I was hoping we could finally build a genuine connection, not just with her trying to replace my mom, but as two people who had both lost someone important. One day, while we were talking, Jody suddenly broke down, concerned. I went over to comfort her. When she calmed down a bit, I asked her what was wrong. "Is everything okay? What happened?" "I got a letter from the bank," she said, voice trembling. "Oh, what did it say?" "Well, you know how I've been caring for your dad these last few months, plus all the medical bills? Yeah, I've barely been able to keep up with the mortgage payments, and now it's been transferred to me. I don't even have a job, and I might lose the house." "Oh no, did the bank say that?" "Yeah, they gave me 4 months to pay all the dues plus the mortgage payments from the last few months. I don't have that kind of money. Your dad didn't leave me much." "I know, it's okay." "No, it's not okay, Jody, calm down. I can help. I've saved up some money. Let me help with the payments." "Really? You'd do that for me?" "Of course, you've grown on me, Jody. I understand you better now, and I think Dad would want me to do this for you." "Thank you, Val. There are 2 conditions if I help you with the payments." "Okay, what are they?" "First, I can't keep paying your mortgage forever. You need to find a job soon. I'll cover half, but you need to start taking care of it, and you'll need to pay me back over time. I promise I will. And second, I can't keep paying for your place and rent my own. If I help, I'll need to move in here. Of course, this house is yours too." I felt bad for Jody. Losing financial stability can be terrifying, and I knew the anxiety she must be feeling, but I also had a cushion in my savings. Something my dad always emphasized, never to be unprepared for tough times. The following week, I took the necessary steps to deal with the mortgage. There were several months of unpaid bills and additional fees that added up to around $112,000. Thankfully, I had enough in savings to cover it, but it was a big hit. Jody was incredibly grateful. She went all out and prepared a huge meal to show her thanks, which was a nice change from the entitled attitude she had shown in the past. I reminded her that she needed to find a job soon, and she assured me she was already on it. Living with Jody again was an experience. She was still demanding, constantly insisting that the house be kept spotless. When she started trying to apply those standards to my room, I set a boundary. My space was my space, and I liked it the way it was. She backed off, probably because she knew the house was only running because of my help. We had our moments of tension, but overall, it wasn't terrible living together. Months turned into a year, and then some. But after a year, I started growing frustrated. Jody still hadn't found a job. She kept saying she was looking, but I never saw any progress. There were no interviews, no applications, nothing. I confronted her about it, and she became defensive. Jody, when are you going to get a job? It's been a year. I'm trying. Are you? It's been a year since you promised to find work. I need to know how much longer I'll be paying the mortgage. I don't know. Okay? Have you even had an interview? No. But I haven't heard back from anyone. Have you tried a part-time job? No. I can't keep paying for this forever. Jody, I need to know you're trying. Then don't help me anymore. I'll just be homeless. I'm sure Dad would be thrilled to see me struggling. That's not what I meant. I'll keep paying, but I can't do it indefinitely. I will find a job. Just give me some time. That was when it hit me, using my dad to guilt me into helping her was a pretty low move. I kept paying, but things only got worse. Jody became more controlling, demanding to know where I was going and who I was spending time with. I put up with it for a while, but when it got out of hand, I finally stood up for myself. She quieted down but then stopped talking to me properly for weeks. The resentment from her was starting to remind me of the way she treated me when my dad was alive. Despite all this, I kept helping her out. Another year went by, and I couldn't take it anymore. I never saw any effort from her to get a job. One day, when she wasn't home, I went through her emails. To my shock, I found that in 2 years, she'd only applied to one place, and that was right after I agreed to help with her mortgage. I was furious. After all I had done, she had been lying to me. When she came home that night, I told her I was done. She didn't take it well. How could you do this to me? I've given you 2 years to get your act together. You've ignored every bit of advice I gave, and now I can't keep carrying you. Do you think I haven't been trying? Jod, it's obvious you're not even trying. You're just making baseless accusations. Oh really? Then why don't you show me all the places you've applied to this year? That's a total invasion of my privacy. I had genuinely tried to build a good relationship with Jod over the years, and I was glad I could be there for her when she needed someone. But now, I had to think about my own future. I never wanted to own a home, and it frustrated me to be financially tied to something that wasn't part of my life plan. Jod broke down in tears, sobbing uncontrollably. As much as it pained me to see her like that, I left her alone that night. My frustration was still too fresh. After calming down, I decided to do some research. I couldn't keep supporting her forever, but if there was a way she could become self-sufficient, I wanted to help her get there. The next morning, she still refused to speak to me, but I gently asked if she'd at least hear me out. I recommended she consider filing for bankruptcy. It might buy her time and pause the loan payments for up to 5 years. She finally responded, asking if I'd help her through the process. I agreed without hesitation, and we spent the next few weeks getting everything filed and approved. Once her mortgage payments were frozen for the next 5 years, I reminded her she needed to plan for her future. She coldly responded that she had it under control and suggested I move on. That hurt, but I realized this was what happens when you stop letting someone take advantage of you. Within a month, I moved out and got my finances back in order. 2 years passed, and I landed a promotion at work. My savings grew, and I made smart investments. Life was finally on track. Jod and I barely kept in touch. She never reached out, but I did now and then, mostly out of respect for my late father, who had loved her deeply. I'd ask how she was holding up and whether she'd found a job. Her answers were cold and dismissive, always telling me to stay out of her business. I was upset at first, but eventually, I stopped letting it bother me. Everything was going fine, until 5 months after her bankruptcy protection ended. That's when she showed up at my door, completely unannounced. I hadn't spoken to her in months, so I had a strong feeling about what she wanted. I mentally prepared myself to say no this time. She looked terrible, exhausted, thinner, her hair unkempt, and clearly in distress. "You don't look well. What's going on?" I asked. "Things have been really hard." "I'm sorry to hear that. Ever since you left, I've spiraled. When you were around, I at least had some company, but afterward, I realized how completely alone I was. I tried reaching out, but you shut me out." "I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be so cold." I was angry. "Angry about what?" "Angry at myself for being alone. Angry at your husband, my dad, for dying. Angry that I was left to struggle." "I understand. It's been 5 years, and I still can't find a job. I've been depressed. I've nearly used up all the money your dad left. And now my family won't help me anymore. They don't understand or even try to. Oh, God. I had no idea things were this bad. I hate having to ask you again, you've already done so much, but if there's any way. I felt conflicted. I had vowed not to help her again, but seeing her this broken, I couldn't ignore her pain. I understood what it was like to be in a dark place. Before I knew it, I had agreed to help her again. She cried, thanking me over and over. I felt good, knowing I could support someone who was clearly struggling. The following week, I was back at the bank, looking into her situation. I learned she hadn't paid her mortgage in 5 months. I wondered why she hadn't tried to refinance or adjust the payments, but figured maybe her mental state had made it too overwhelming. After digging deeper, I saw she owed about $775,000 in total, including fees, to fully pay off the mortgage. Thankfully, I had saved enough to cover the full amount. I asked her if she wanted me to pay it off and allow her to repay me gradually. She cried again, asking if that was really possible. I told her it was, but that we'd need to sign a contract the following week. Somehow, she convinced me to make the payment first and sign the agreement afterward. Later that day, I went to her house. A car I didn't recognize was in the driveway, and the front door was unlocked. Inside, I heard laughter. Jod was in the living room, sitting on another man's lap, arms around him. I froze. Just a week ago, she was crying about missing my dad and not being able to go on. When she saw me, she laughed and looked at the man. Babe, that's the girl I told you about. She's the daughter of the guy I married to get this house. I played her into paying off the mortgage so now we can live here in peace. What are you saying? I asked, stunned. Oh, come on, you can't be that naive. Did you really think I couldn't get a job? So it was all fake? Of course, I never loved your dad. I married him for financial security. I was tired of working and wanted out. I just didn't think he'd die so soon. You're disgusting. My dad loved you so much. Yeah, well, I didn't, but I got what I wanted, a house. And now, I get to enjoy it with my boyfriend. I walked out, tears burning my eyes. I felt betrayed and furious. How could she use me like that? How could she manipulate me with memories of my father? But then I remembered something important. Because of the large transfer amount, the bank held the funds for 24 hours in case I wanted to cancel. Jod had no idea. I immediately contacted the bank and canceled the transaction. Then I blocked her number, her socials, everything. I made sure there was no way she could reach me again. It would take her a few weeks to realize the payment hadn't gone through. Meanwhile, I decided it was time for a fresh start and moved away. Yes, I was still hurting, but I took comfort in the fact that she wouldn't get away with it. Later, I learned her home was foreclosed. She'd been bouncing between couches, abandoned by the boyfriend she scammed me for. She badmouthed me, but no one believed her. In fact, people reached out to support me instead. It felt like justice had finally been served. I've learned not to let anyone guilt me into decisions. People can and will exploit kindness if you let them. Once someone shows you their true colors, believe them and walk away. This experience taught me a hard but important lesson, and now, I'll live my life peacefully, honoring my dad's memory, not by helping someone who used him, but by living with strength and clarity. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Stay stunned.